They didn't vanish overnight. They left their cities standing, temples still intact, murals still wet with pigment, cooking fires barely cold. And then, one of the most sophisticated civilizations in human history simply stopped. The Maya built cities without metal tools or the wheel. They mapped the stars with terrifying precision. Their calendar was more accurate than the one we use today. So the question that has haunted archaeologists for 2 centuries is not whether the Maya were capable of survival. It's what could possibly have broken them. At its peak, the Maya civilization stretched across what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. More than 40 cities, millions of people, a population density in some regions that rivals modern Los Angeles. And by 900 AD, the great southern lowland cities, Tikal, Palenque, Copan, had been largely abandoned. This is what historians call the classic Maya collapse, and it is one of the most debated, most studied, and most misunderstood events in all of archaeology. Because what actually happened wasn't a single catastrophe. It was something far more complicated and far more human. The Maya were not a monolithic empire. They were a collection of rival city-states, each ruled by a divine king, each competing for resources, prestige, and power. Think less Roman Empire, more Renaissance Italy, brilliant, ruthless, perpetually at war with itself. That distinction matters enormously for what came next. By the late 700s AD, something had begun to shift. Tree ring data and lake sediment cores, nature's own historical record, show a pattern of severe, sustained drought across the Yucatan Peninsula. Not one bad season. Years of catastrophic rainfall failure. The reservoirs that cities like Tikal depended on began to drop, then empty. Tikal, at its height, housed nearly 100,000 people in a landscape with no rivers and no natural lakes. Every drop of water was engineered, captured in massive plastered reservoirs during the rainy season. When the rain stopped coming reliably, that engineering marvel became a liability. The city had grown too large for its own infrastructure to sustain it through prolonged drought, and hunger followed thirst. The Maya practiced intensive agriculture, raised fields, terracing, irrigation canals. But those systems required labor, coordination, and above all, water. As harvest failed, the social contract between the divine kings and their people began to fray. Kings derived their legitimacy from one thing: the ability to intercede with the gods on behalf of their people. When prayers went unanswered and crops withered anyway, that legitimacy collapsed with the harvest. What followed was not quiet decline. It was violent dissolution. Archaeological evidence at multiple sites, Canquén, Aguateca, Dos Pilas, reveals mass graves, burned palaces, and defensive walls built in desperation from the stones of old temples. The elites were targeted first. The monumental construction that had defined Maya civilization for centuries, the great temple projects, the royal stelae, the carved proclamations of divine kingship simply ceased. No more monuments, no more dates. Silence, carved in stone. City after city crossed what researchers call the tipping point, a threshold beyond which collapse becomes self-reinforcing. Refugees from failed cities flooded into neighboring ones, straining resources further. Trade networks that had connected the Maya world for centuries seized up. Knowledge was lost, specialists scattered, and the forest, always waiting at the edge, moved back in. Within 100 years, cities that had stood for 5 centuries were being reclaimed by ceiba trees and strangler figs. The jungle does not mourn. It simply grows. But here is where the story takes a turn that most people never hear. The Maya did not disappear. The classic Maya collapse was a collapse of a political system, not a people. While the southern lowlands crumbled, the northern cities, Chichen Itza, Uxmal, Mayapan, rose to prominence. Trade shifted. Power shifted. The civilization adapted, transformed, and endured. Today, more than 7 million Maya people live across Mexico and Central America. They speak 31 distinct Mayan languages. They maintain cultural traditions with roots stretching back thousands of years. The civilization did not end. Its political structures collapsed. There is an enormous difference. This matters because the story we've been told, of mysterious vanishing, of a civilization swallowed by jungle, is partly a story we invented. It served a particular purpose, making the collapse seem inexplicable, otherworldly, perhaps even deserved. It removed human agency from the equation, and it conveniently overlooked the millions of descendants who never went anywhere. What the evidence actually shows is a civilization that faced intersecting crises, climate stress, ecological degradation, political fragmentation, warfare, and was unable to hold its most complex urban centers together under the combined weight. That is not mysterious. It is a warning. The Maya cleared forests for agriculture at an astonishing rate. Recent studies suggest that deforestation in the Maya lowlands may have actually worsened the droughts that contributed to the collapse. A feedback loop where human activity altered local climate, which then undermined the civilization's ability to survive. They may have helped trigger the conditions that destroyed them. We look at the ruins of Tikal or Palenque and feel the weight of something lost. And something was lost. Irretrievably. Languages erased by conquest. Codices burned by Spanish